Hello, thank you for inviting me here. My name is Ranjani Krishnan. I'm a professor at Michigan State University in East Lansing. I've been there for 27 years. I did my PhD at the University of Pittsburgh, and my area of research is management accounting with a focus on healthcare and associated topics like corporate governance, etc.
Okay. Your research spans corporate governance, healthcare management, and innovation. What's one recent insight from your work that surprised even you?
So when I was working on a project related to healthcare, the project was related to disclosures, and in accounting research, disclosures are a very popular topic of research. And generally speaking, the conventional wisdom around disclosures is that firms that disclose more information and better quality information, those firms generally have a better, there's less information asymmetry between the market and the firm, and so those firms have higher valuation. But the point is that whether this applies to healthcare organizations, it was not very clear because hospitals do not have shareholders, and so there is no kind of a market valuation doesn't exist. So a project that I worked on with one of my colleagues and a PhD student, so the colleague's name was Martin Holzacker and the PhD student was Aishwarya Deore. We were looking at whether disclosures without any financial incentives attached to them, that is, there is no market valuation that's going to improve, the hospital is not going to gain anything from these disclosures, simply better quality disclosures, whether they improve, what is the effect of these on outcomes. So we found that so let's take an example. Let's say that a hospital decides to disclose the quality of patient care for patients who suffered from a heart attack. So what we found is that the disclosures of quality of heart attack patients improved the future quality of heart attack patients, but it had spillover effects on other areas of health related to cardiology, like arrhythmia or other irregular heart rate conditions. So the thing here was that you don't see that often in the corporate world, that a disclosure reduces information asymmetry and improves the quality of non-financial outcomes, not just for the item, the metric being disclosed, but also for associated metrics that are related to that. In the course of doing that, we found that not only does, let's say, disclosing the quality of care for heart attack patients after the quality of heart attack patients was being publicly disclosed by the hospitals, not only did they improve the quality of care for heart attack patients and for patients who had other cardiology issues, but it also continued throughout the entire spectrum of care, like what we call continuity of healthcare. So it improved the patient's health after they were discharged from the hospital, and then their entire, like, how well they took care of their heart health after that. So all those improved just by that one act of disclosures. And so one of the things that in some senses was more than surprising, it was fulfilling, I would say, is as accountants, sometimes our research is kind of viewed with a very narrow lens. Relative to some other areas, it's felt that accounting research is pretty narrow. But this particular one showed that an accounting construct, which is disclosure, actually had very big policy implications that touched literally the entire spectrum of healthcare. And so basically it showed that, spillover effects of accounting, if you will, on other areas as well. And so that was I think surprising but also very fulfilling.
From your editorial roles in top journals to teaching at Harvard and Georgetown, what's a common thread you see in groundbreaking research?
For this, because I teach in this area, there is a lot I can talk about, but I'm just going to focus on 4 issues here. One is, the quality, I think, of work. And when I say quality, I think it's the most important part here is well-crafted theory. I think, unfortunately, there is a trend in accounting which we call p-hacking, which is that you just run a bunch of tables, you run a bunch of analysis, you see some results that appear to be significant, and then you take those results and then work backwards and write the paper. I think that's a really bad idea. So this p-hacking, it appears to be somewhat full, like it seems like, oh, I have the results, now I can write the paper. That backwards way of going to write a paper is a really bad idea. And editors and journal reviewers definitely detect this. It's not hard to see a p-hacked paper. So, well-crafted theory, there is no substitute for beginning there. And for that, a deep knowledge of the literature is important. And so reading all the associated literature in that field, not just in accounting, but also other fields. So if you're working on a paper that is related to financing, for example, then you should read the finance and economics literature as well. If you are working on a management accounting paper, then you should read the management literature as well. So well-crafted theory is basically the foundation. If you do not have that, nothing flies after that. So there is no substitute for a careful literature review and well-crafted theory. The second is well-executed methods. You can't simply say that someone else has been using these methods for a long time, and so let me continue to use it. You cannot nor can you follow a checklist. It's a pretty bad idea to follow a checklist for methodology. So, because what is important is the data and the methods should fit with the theory. Otherwise, if there is kind of like a separation, so there is a theoretical front end, and then you have like an analysis of data and you use some econometric techniques, but there is no kind of the association between the two is weak, or that the proxies that you're using to measure your theoretical constructs are weak, then again the paper will kind of fall apart. So that well-executed methods and a good fit of data and theory is really crucial. And then, the next part is writing. They say that easy reading is hard writing. What it means is that it's very important to have a simple and elegant design. So, with respect to the writing piece, the framing, momentum of the how you build up the momentum of the paper, examples are really important, descriptions are really important. And so the more simple and the more elegant it is, the better this is. And for that, they say writing is all about rewriting. So you write a draft and then you sit back, put it aside for a couple days, go back, look at it again and start rewriting. And usually the introduction and the conclusions are the hardest part to write, and those are the ones that take a long time. So good writing. The third is what we call contribution, which is like a kind of like a vague and elusive term. Many papers are rejected on the basis of not having enough contribution. What do we mean by contribution? Well, there's many ways you can contribute. One is create new theory. Very rare to do that. There's hardly any papers that create new theory. It's very that's groundbreaking kind of thing, and I think aiming for that is a little bit, well, if you can, that's great, but creating new theory. And counterintuitive is the next one they say for contribution. It flies against conventional wisdom. That's also really hard to do. So let's take an example. When Kahneman and Tversky came up with prospect theory, it flew against the conventional wisdom of symmetry of utility curves. They showed that people's utilities are not symmetric, and around a particular reference point they change. So people are risk averse with gains and risk seeking with losses. So people's attitude towards risk is not symmetric. So that flew against conventional wisdom, but then they also won a Nobel Prize in economics. So you can't expect every paper you write to fly against conventional wisdom. The other way you can contribute is synthesize previous theories. You can say theory X said this and theory Y said that, but there's some kind of lack of mapping between these theories. Let me write a paper that synthesizes these two theories and tries to build a bridge, so to say, between these two theories. So for example, once I wrote a paper that tried to look at transaction cost economics and institutional theory. They're actually very different theories. Transaction cost economics is a pure economics theory that talks about how contracts are incomplete and how do we make the contracts more complete. Institutional theory is all about pressures that companies face from stakeholders. And so we tried to write this paper, which was published in an accounting journal called Journal of Accounting Research, which said that each of these theories explains a piece, and this was also a healthcare paper, explains a piece of hospital behavior, but it doesn't do a complete job. But when you put them both together, then they provide a more comprehensive understanding of hospital behavior. And this was with respect to outsourcing in hospitals. So that's an example of a synthesis of previous theories. The other is the importance of the findings. The findings should resonate with people. It shouldn't be like, oh, I already know this, so what's the point of reading this? So that's the contribution. And the last, which is definitely not the least, is practical implications. Are you producing usable knowledge with this research, or is it just one drop in the big ocean? Right? So it should be a regulator or a firm should be able to take it up and use this research for doing business better. Right? So that's the usable knowledge piece. And I think that these four would probably be like groundbreaking research: quality, good writing, contribution, for which there are many avenues, as I mentioned, to get to the contribution, and implications for practice.
Last question. If you could give one piece of advice to aspiring researchers aiming for high impact publication, what would it be?
So I have like this advice of the 3 P's, I call it. Like marketing has the 4 P's. There is 3 P's, right? The first one is preparation. You simply have to, like you cannot start writing a paper until you have mastery of the literature, which means you read at least like 100, 200 papers and develop like a very good mastery. So that is the preparation, and you also have mastery over the methods that you're using. Let's take an example. Generally, because econometrics is a little more math oriented, people think, oh, we can't do econometrics unless we've taken the requisite classes. But somehow when it comes to qualitative research, like talking to people in the field or experimental research, people think, oh, what's the big deal, I can just run an experiment like in 5 minutes. Not true. Those methods also are sciences. Just like econometrics is a methodology that needs training, you need training in order to do an econometrics paper. You also need training to do an experimental paper or a field-oriented paper. So what I would say in preparation, especially for PhD students and young scholars, is to take some courses to develop your skill set in more than one methodology, not just one, multiple, because in the end, what generalizes from your paper is the theory, not the methodology. And if you have like a toolkit, right, think of like you have a toolkit with screwdrivers, right? If you have only one size screwdriver, then you can only use it for one type of nail. But you have 3 different types, then you can use it depending on the nail that you see, right? So that is a preparation. The second P is perseverance. Writing the first draft of a paper is so much fun. You actually get energy from it. You could work for 20 hours a day for like several months and not be tired. But writing like the 10th draft of that paper is unbelievably hard. And that's where you should persevere. You cannot give up. And so that's where it comes to the, so you cannot say, oh, or rejections. Let's say you get rejected from a journal. Make sure you use the comments of the reviewers to improve the paper, and make sure now if you think it's a good idea, if you've invested a year or 2 in it, then persevere with it. Try to get it published somewhere. It doesn't matter if it's not a top tier journal. The idea, if the idea is good, it should be heard. Doesn't matter where it is. So that is the perseverance. And the last is the patience. It's really important, like the patience part is where people get very impatient. They're like, okay, you know, I'm done, I have all this. Just like sitting and rewriting or redoing the analysis or making sure every footnote is carefully written and makes sense. All those are like need a lot of patience. And this is, none of these are things that you can outsource. You can't say, for example, oh, my co-author will do the preparation or my co-author will do, you know, this piece. No, everybody should do every piece in a paper. Despite being 30 years, you know, since I got my PhD, I still run analysis. I still do methods. It's not like I say, oh, PhD student or my junior author can do the analysis. It's really important for everyone to touch every piece of the paper. So that's like the kind of, it's a communal or a collective objective. It's not like a singular objective. So I would say these are some of the, you know, advice I would give to some of the younger researchers. Thank you so much. Good luck to everybody. Thank you. And it's lovely being here.